Our country is in critical condition right now. And if we don't do something about it in the relatively near future, it's going to be over. I want you to think about the fact that if we get another progressive president in place, and they get a chance to appoint 3 more Supreme Court justices, that's the end of the United States as we know it. What's going to have to happen is that Republicans, conservatives, people of faith, and people with common sense have to get together. Now, some people are not going to like what I'm about to say. But after the primaries are over, if your candidate didn't win, don't take your marbles and go home. You still need to vote for whoever won. Okay? They may not agree with you on everything, but it is much better to work with somebody who agrees with you 90% of the time than somebody who disagrees with you 100% of the time, which is what happens when you take your marbles and go home. You know, some people hate the word compromise. I don't like the word compromise when it applies to principles, but it's okay when it applies to tactics. And I'll give you a perfect example from the Bible. The story of Esther. You know, she hid the fact that she was a Jew. I'm sure some people were quite offended by that. She's ashamed of her heritage. She doesn't want anything to do with us. But she had a larger plan in mind. And when she was able to marry the king, she was able to save her people. This is the way we're going to have to think. All of us together, we have to look at the big picture. We are trying to save the nation right now. You will be able, with the right kind of leadership, to herd the rhinos, and they will move in the right direction. We also need to readopt the Reagan rule. Never speak ill of another Republican. Okay? Don't do that. You know, I myself have had an argument with some people on the conservative side because of my stand on the Second Amendment. You know, I feel, first of all, that the Second Amendment is vitally important, and I would never compromise the Second Amendment in any way. What I have said, which has caused some people concern, is that there are areas of our society where there is an inordinate amount of gun violence, and sometimes very heavy weaponry is utilized. What we need to be able to do is sit down and have a discussion about, is there a way to ameliorate that situation, and also, is there a way to keep weapons out of the hands of people who are mentally ill without compromising any provision of the Second Amendment? That's what I've said. We need to be able to do that. We never will resolve problems if we can't talk. If we get into corners and we say, absolutely cannot talk about that. You see, that's what the left does. And that is called intolerance. And that is not who we are. When I talk about we, I'm talking about people with common sense who have the ability to use their brains to actually solve problems. That's what we want to do. As far as immigration is concerned, you know, obviously, all of us are immigrants at some level. However, we do have rules that govern how immigration is done to this nation. And we need to follow those rules. And as far as the border is concerned, we have the ability to secure the border. We just don't have the will to secure the border. You know, we have what we need to do that. We have 10,000 drones. You know, we have all kinds of technological things. And all we have to do is consult some of the people who have developed all kinds of ways of keeping people out of their territory. And we can take the best of those things and we can multiply them. But we can absolutely do that. There's no question about it. But the other part of it is we have to reduce the incentive for people to want to come here. That's how you fix the problem. I guarantee you that if you remove all the goodies, people will find a way to get out of here just like they found a way to get in here. And one of the most important parts of that are the employers. And as far as I'm concerned, the second offense, if you hire someone who is not here legally, should be a criminal offense and should be treated as such. Absolutely. I guarantee you it would stop. Now, it is true that, some of the people who work the fields, who do some of the jobs that Americans sometimes don't want to do, are necessary to some parts of our economy. It's true. But we need to have rules in place that say only if American citizens will not take this job will we make it available to a guest worker who is officially, legally here, who is paying taxes and is registered. If we do it that way, it will make a tremendous difference. And to be able to become a registered immigrant worker, what you have to do is apply from outside the country. That means if you're here illegally and maybe you have an employer, you need to talk to that employer and get them to verify that they want to bring you back. There'll be a process put in place where they can request to have you come back. They've already met the requirements that there's no American citizen who will take that job. But you have to do that from outside the country because there's no way that we can put people in line to become American citizens or to enjoy the benefits of America who have broken the law and put them in front of people who have not broken the law. That doesn't make any sense. And then there's the issue of health care and health care reform. Now, this, narrative that some of the left have put forward, they say Carson doesn't want poor people to have health care. Nothing could be further from the truth. I absolutely think that we have the capacity and we're compassionate enough to provide health care for all of our citizens. But we need to do it in the right way. We need to do it in a way where the care is between the patient and the physician, and we get rid of all the people in the middle. That's the problem with the VA system. One of the real keys is health savings accounts. I love health savings accounts. And you get one the moment you're born. And it stays with you until the moment that you die. And money is placed in it every year, and it accumulates, and you don't lose it if you don't use it. And for young people, of course, they are not going to be having great uses of that until usually well into adulthood, so quite a lot of money will have accumulated by that time. You can fund it from a variety of different ways. There's a host of ways. And saveourhealthcare.org, you go there and you can see some of the different ways that it can be funded. But I also would advocate that people have the ability to shift money in their health savings account. So let's say the dad is $500 short. The money can come from his wife's HSA or his daughter or his grandfather or anybody within the family. That provides tremendous flexibility, makes every family virtually their own health insurance company with no middleman in the middle. Takes care of a lot of problems. Also, keep in mind that all of your routine health care is coming out of your HSA. You sprain your ankle, you think you need an x-ray? That's coming out of your HSA. You need birth control pills? That's coming out of your HSA. No Hobby Lobby, okay? You don't even have to worry about it. So, but since everything is coming out of your HSA, and 80+% of anything that you encounter, there's very little to impinge upon your major medical insurance. So the cost of that is going to go down dramatically. And that major medical insurance, you can buy from any place. What that will do is it will make the consumer the person who's in charge. And what that will do is it will bring the whole healthcare system into the free market economic model, and that's what controls quality, and that's what controls price. That's how you do it. We have a fiscal problem. You know, we now have a $17.5 trillion going on $18 trillion national debt. That is a crime against all of those who follow us in the future. And let me tell you how much money. Let me tell you how much money that is. If you try to pay back $18 trillion at a rate of $10 million a day, $10 million, that's a lot of money. $10 million a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, it would take you 5,000 years. That's how much money we are talking about. That is absurd. And you need to be informing yourself of who your representatives are. I don't care whether they're Democrats or Republicans. What you need to find out is, are they continuing to vote to raise our debt ceiling? And if they are, throw them out of office. That's what we need to do. And we need to shrink the government. It's too big. You know, in 2010, if you take the income of everybody who makes $69,000 and above, it comes out to $5.1 trillion. That's a lot of money. The federal budget that year was $3.5 trillion. 60% of everything the middle class and above makes for the federal budget. I mean, that is ridiculous. What we really need to do is you need to shrink the government, and I have a very good way to do that. Thousands of government employees retire each year. Don't replace them. You can shift people from one department to another if you want to, and you do that for about 4 years, and the government will be down to a lean, mean size. They will only have enough personnel to do what they're supposed to do, and they'll keep their big noses out of everybody's business. Now, I would add one agency, however, to the government. It would be a covert agency, and they would go around and they would monitor government workers and government services. And people who were irresponsible, lazy, and unresponsive would find themselves with a no job. That's the way it ought to be done. Because the vast majority of people in this country actually do have common sense. What has happened is that they've been beaten into submission by the secular progressives, the liberal media. You look at what's going on in our universities, which are supposed to be the bastions of intellectual thought. And what they're teaching the students is, if somebody doesn't agree with you, you don't want to hear them. You don't want anybody else to hear them. If they have a business, you want to shut it down. If they have a reputation, you want to destroy it. That is fascism. That's what's going on in our nation right now. How do we deal with the poor people in our country, with the indigent? We are compassionate people. But what is truly non-compassionate is looking at poor people and saying, you poor little thing. You can't do anything for yourself, so I'm going to give you free health care and food stamps and a housing subsidy and everything that you possibly need, because you can't do it for themselves, and those bad rich people, they are the ones who are causing your problem. And everybody knows that that's not true. That is the worst thing you can do, because that makes people dependent. That is cutting their legs out from underneath them. That is not what we need. We need everybody in this country. We need to develop all the talent that we have in this country if we are to survive. You know, India has more than 1 billion people. China has more than 1 billion people. We only have 300 million people. We need to cultivate every single one of them. And that's what's going to make America strong. We need to utilize some of the programs like microfinance, some of the things that Muhammad Yunus, who won the Nobel Prize, advocated, which lifted millions of people out of poverty in Pakistan and India. Those same kind of principles can apply here. We want to give people a mechanism for climbing out of that 47% and making it to the top in America. That's what we have to do. We need to think about the fact that God has blessed this country with abundant natural resources. Our EPA shouldn't be used to stifle the development of those, but rather to work with universities and industry to develop those things. Those high energy costs are hurting the poor people in this nation. Think about people who have to drive for a living and how that impacts upon them. And, by not putting in the Keystone Pipeline, I'll tell you, the rich investors can take their money and put it somewhere else. But what about all of those plumbers and electricians and diggers and all those people who would have jobs? They don't have the ability to do that. They're the ones who's being hurt. I hope the people of America realize that the policies of this administration are hurting them. And I don't think they're stupid at all. I think the administration thinks they're stupid, and they think that they can be manipulated so easily just by saying a few things, and there may be been a time when people weren't paying attention, but I believe they're starting to wake up now. We have absurd taxation policies, and these are things that can be easily reversed, but we have to get the requisite number of people in both houses of Congress, and we got to get the White House, and we can turn this thing around in virtually no time at all. It's not going to be a hard thing to do. And, in terms of foreign policy, we do not need to stick our nose in everybody's business, but we do need to lead. We are the pinnacle nation of the world. There's a responsibility that comes with that. And right now the world is like a third grade class with no teacher in it, and it's going like crazy. Okay? When you don't know what's going on, what are you going to do except react? And that's what we're doing. We sit back and we react. We should have plans in place for virtually every scenario. Not only in the Middle East, but, in Russia, that whole area. Why are we sitting around waiting for Putin to react? We have the ability with all of our natural resources to make Europe dependent on us for oil. They don't need to be dependent on the Soviet Union. And we need right now to be formulating treaties with all the former components of the Soviet Union, which will make it much more difficult for Putin to get in there. We need to put him back in his box because we don't need another Cold War with the Soviet Union. But we have to think about that now. And when we do get back in power, and we are going to, because I can tell you something, there are enough God-fearing people in this nation. God is not going to turn his back on us. Will not do it. Okay? But when we do get back in power, and again, when I say we, I'm talking about people with common sense. We have to take the Constitution and put it on the top shelf once again in this nation. And then we have to govern for all the people, and we will not pick and choose which laws we want to enforce, and we cannot have favorite groups because there's only one special interest group that we should be interested in, and that is the people of the United States of America. And every child learns the Pledge of Allegiance when they go to school. Okay? And it's wonderful because it says we're one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. But think about what's going on right now. We're no longer one nation. We're trying to kick God to the curb. We're divided in every way possible. They drive a wedge into everything to create a war on women, racial wars, income wars, gender wars, religious wars. So it's not indivisible. Liberty and justice for all when we pick and choose who winners are. We have just about turned that thing completely around. But we have the ability because the power lies with we, the people. It just means that we have to exercise that power. We have to become responsible voters. We have to be clever. We have to work together. We cannot allow ourselves to be divided. They will do everything in their power to divide us up and to make us think that, the Tea Party is here and the rhinos are here. And forget about it. because we're going to have a Tea Party Rhino get-together. And we are going to take back the country. And this is what we're going to have to do. We have to do it. We can do it. We can work together, because it doesn't matter which end of the right-sided spectrum you're on. We have a lot more things in common than we have apart. And we need to use that collective strength to take back America. Thank you.